The wine glass exploded across the marble floor just as Ethan Vale grabbed the old man by the arm. "Get him out of here," Ethan snapped. The pianist stopped playing mid-note. Conversations died instantly. Every wealthy guest inside Maison Lumière turned toward the entrance as security rushed forward. Rainwater dripped from the homeless man's torn coat onto the polished floor while he struggled to keep his balance. "Sir, please," the old man said quietly. "I'm not trying to cause trouble." Ethan's jaw tightened. Tonight was too important for this. The city gala only happened once every year, and every powerful person in the room mattered. Politicians sat near the fireplace. Influencers recorded videos beside the champagne tower. Millionaire investor Marcus Hale was only 10 feet away watching everything unfold. And now this filthy stranger had walked straight into Ethan's perfect night. "You already caused enough," Ethan hissed. "People are trying to eat." The old man looked around nervously as whispers spread through the restaurant. "Who let him in? He smells terrible. Call the police." Claire Monroe, the restaurant manager, stepped closer carefully. "Maybe we should just give him something warm and let him leave quietly." "No," Ethan interrupted sharply. "If one person walks in off the street, more will follow." The homeless man lowered his eyes. For a second, he almost looked embarrassed to exist. "I only wanted somewhere dry," he whispered. But Ethan was already furious. For 15 years, he had built Maison Lumière into the most exclusive restaurant in the city. He had clawed his way out of poverty, humiliation, and rejection. Nobody respected weakness. Nobody rewarded softness. Ethan had learned that lesson early. And tonight had to be flawless. Marcus Hale was preparing to invest millions into Ethan's expansion project. One mistake could destroy everything. Then the homeless man accidentally bumped into a passing waiter. A tray tilted. Red wine splashed across the tablecloth. A woman screamed as crystals shattered onto the floor. That was it. Ethan lost control. "Out!" he shouted, grabbing the man's arm harder. The old man winced in pain. "Please," he muttered. "You're hurting me." "Then stop resisting." Security moved toward them, but Ethan shoved the man himself toward the front doors. Rain hammered violently against the glass outside while guests stared like they were watching a public execution. "People like you ruin places like this," Ethan snapped. The old man froze. The words hit harder than the shove. For a moment, sadness filled his tired eyes. Then Ethan pushed him again. The man stumbled backward toward the doorway, catching himself against the wooden frame. And Ethan saw it. A scar. Jagged. Crooked. Stretching across the center of the man's palm. Ethan's entire body went cold. No. No way. The restaurant disappeared around him. Suddenly, he was 8 years old again, kneeling beside a broken bicycle in the rain. His father laughing softly while fixing the loose chain. Then the wrench slipping. Blood pouring from his palm. Young Ethan panicking. "Dad." "Your hand." But his father only smiled. "It's nothing, kiddo. Bikes can be replaced. Your smile can't." The memory slammed into Ethan so hard he nearly stopped breathing. Back in the present, the homeless man slowly pulled his hand away from the doorframe. Their eyes met, and Ethan felt his stomach collapse. "Dad," he whispered. The old man said nothing. But the silence confirmed everything. Claire stared in confusion. "Ethan?" Marcus Hale narrowed his eyes. "What's going on?" The old man looked at Ethan one last time. Not angry, not hateful, just tired. Then he turned and walked into the storm. Ethan stood frozen while rain blew through the open doorway. His father. The man he believed abandoned him 20 years ago. The man he had just thrown into the street like garbage. "Sir?" Claire said carefully. "Should I call security back?" Ethan suddenly snapped out of it. "No." He rushed toward the entrance. "Ethan," Marcus called. "We're about to discuss the investment." But Ethan ignored him completely. For the first time in years, money didn't matter. He sprinted outside into the pouring rain. Cars splashed through flooded streets while thunder echoed overhead. Ethan searched desperately through crowds, his expensive shoes soaking instantly. "Dad," he shouted. No answer. He turned corners wildly, breathing hard. "Dad." Nothing. Panic started creeping into his chest. The image of the scar kept replaying in his mind. The same scar. The same hand that used to hold his when crossing the street. The same hand that worked endless construction shifts to feed him. And Ethan had shoved it away in front of an entire restaurant. A memory surfaced violently. 14-year-old Ethan standing beside his mother's hospital bed after she died. His father hugging him tightly. "We only have each other now," Daniel had whispered. But years later, Daniel disappeared without warning. No goodbye. No explanation. Just gone. And Ethan had hated him ever since. Rain poured down Ethan's face as he searched alley after alley. Finally, near an old bridge behind a closed grocery store, he saw him. Daniel Reed sat alone beside a shopping cart covered with soaked blankets. His shoulders trembled slightly from the cold. For a moment, Ethan couldn't move. This couldn't be real. The man who once carried him on his shoulders now looked broken by life itself. "Dad." Daniel slowly looked up. "You found me." Ethan stepped closer carefully. "Why didn't you tell me it was you?" Daniel gave a weak laugh. "You recognized me just fine after you threw me out." The guilt hit Ethan like a punch. "I didn't know. You didn't look." Silence hung between them while rainwater dripped from the bridge above. Ethan swallowed hard. "I thought you abandoned me." Daniel stared at the ground for several seconds before speaking. "I wanted you to hate me." "What?" "When your mother died, I worked every job I could find. Construction, night shifts, warehouse work." Daniel coughed painfully. "Then I got hurt." Ethan frowned. "What do you mean hurt?" Daniel slowly rolled up his sleeve. A massive scar stretched across his shoulder. "I fell 3 floors at a construction site." Ethan's eyes widened. "They fired me after the accident. Bills piled up. Debt collectors started coming after us." Daniel's voice cracked slightly. "I couldn't even afford your school fees anymore." "Why didn't you tell me?" "Because I was your father." Daniel looked away. Fathers are supposed to protect their children, not become burdens. Ethan felt sick. All these years he had believed Daniel simply walked away. "You disappeared," Ethan whispered. Daniel nodded slowly. "I thought if I left, you'd stop wasting your future trying to save me." Ethan's chest tightened painfully. "So you became homeless?" "At first, I thought I'd recover quickly." Daniel laughed bitterly. Life had other plans. Lightning flashed across the sky. Daniel looked at Ethan carefully. "You did well for yourself." Ethan almost broke hearing that. Even now, even after the humiliation, his father still sounded proud of him. "I searched for you," Ethan said quietly. Daniel shook his head. "No. You searched for the version of me you wanted to remember. Not this." Ethan's eyes filled with tears. "I'm sorry." Daniel didn't respond. "I mean it," Ethan continued desperately. "What I said in there, what I did." "You looked at me," Daniel interrupted softly, "and saw trash before you saw your father." The words shattered Ethan completely. Because they were true. If you're still watching the story, take 1 second to like the video and comment where you're watching from. Stories like this remind us how quickly pride can blind people to what truly matters. Ethan wiped rainwater from his face, but his hands were shaking badly now. "Please come back with me," he begged. Daniel stared at him silently. "Why?" "Because you're my father." "No," Daniel said quietly. "Tonight, I was just a homeless man embarrassing your rich guests." "That's not true." It looked true to everyone inside that restaurant. Ethan lowered his head, unable to argue. Every cruel word replayed in his mind. "People like you ruin places like this." The sentence sounded uglier now than it had minutes ago. Rain pounded the pavement around them while Daniel slowly pulled the soaked blanket tighter around his shoulders. "You should go back," Daniel muttered. "Your guests are waiting." "I don't care about the guests." Daniel looked up sharply. "You should." "No." "You spent your whole life building that restaurant. And what's the point of it?" Ethan snapped suddenly. "What's the point of any of it if I became this?" Daniel studied him carefully. For the first time that night, Ethan no longer looked like the confident owner of Maison Lumière. He looked like a frightened little boy trying desperately not to lose the only family he had left. "You don't understand," Ethan whispered. After you disappeared, I hated you for years. Daniel looked away silently. I thought you abandoned me because I wasn't enough. Ethan's voice trembled. Every success I chased, every dollar, every award, it was all because I wanted to prove I could survive without you. Pain crossed Daniel's face. I never stopped thinking about you, he admitted quietly. Not once. Ethan stepped closer. Then why stay away? Daniel laughed bitterly. You want the truth? Yes. Because every year that passed made me more ashamed. Daniel's eyes filled with tears he tried hard to hide. The first year, I thought I'd get back on my feet. The second year, I was too embarrassed to come home with nothing. After 5 years, he swallowed hard. I convinced myself you were better off without me. You were wrong. Was I? Daniel asked softly. Look at you. Successful, respected, powerful, and empty. Ethan said immediately. That answer hit Daniel harder than expected. For several seconds, neither man spoke. Then Ethan slowly removed his expensive coat and draped it over his father's shoulders. Daniel tried to hand it back immediately. No. You'll freeze. I deserve worse. Don't say that. But it's true. Ethan looked directly at him. I humiliated my own father in front of an entire restaurant because I cared more about appearances than kindness. Daniel's expression softened slightly. Pride is dangerous, he said quietly. It makes people blind. Ethan nodded painfully. I know. Back at Maison Lumière, chaos had taken over. Guests whispered aggressively while staff rushed around nervously. Marcus Hale stood near the entrance, watching the rain outside. Claire approached carefully. Sir, should we cancel the remaining reservations? Marcus ignored the question. Who is that man? He asked. Claire hesitated. Ethan's father. Marcus looked genuinely shocked. The homeless man? Yes. Marcus slowly exhaled. Then, to Claire's surprise, he said quietly, that explains his reaction. Outside under the bridge, Ethan sat beside Daniel on the cold concrete. For the first time in years, there were no walls between them. No pride. No pretending. Just truth. You remember the blue bicycle? Ethan asked suddenly. Daniel smiled faintly. The one you crashed into Mrs. Patterson's fence? Ethan almost laughed through his tears. You told Mom the fence attacked me. She believed me too. Both men laughed softly for the first time that night. The moment felt fragile, human, real. Then Daniel's smile slowly faded. I'm tired, Ethan. Then come home. Daniel looked down immediately. You keep saying home like it still belongs to me. It does. No, Daniel whispered. That life ended years ago. Ethan's eyes filled again. Only because you thought you had to suffer alone. Daniel didn't answer. Ethan took a shaky breath. When Mom died, you carried everything by yourself. His voice cracked. And instead of helping you, I judged you for collapsing under the weight. Daniel closed his eyes painfully. You were just a kid. I'm not a kid anymore. Ethan's voice hardened with emotion. And tonight I acted worse than one. Thunder rolled across the city. Then Ethan stood suddenly. Come with me. Daniel frowned. Where? Back to the restaurant. No. Yes. I'm not walking back in there after what happened. You have every right to. Daniel shook his head firmly. Ethan. You spent your whole life protecting me. Ethan interrupted. Now it's my turn. Daniel stared at him in silence. For the first time all night, Ethan sounded less like a businessman and more like a son. Back at Maison Lumière, conversation stopped again when the front doors opened. Ethan walked in beside Daniel. The entire restaurant turned toward them. Whispers spread instantly. That's him. The homeless guy came back. Claire looked relieved while Marcus watched carefully from his table. Ethan slowly stepped into the center of the dining room. His heart pounded violently. But this time he didn't hide. He faced everyone directly. A few minutes ago, Ethan said loudly, I threw this man out of my restaurant because I was ashamed of how he looked. The room fell completely silent. Ethan continued. I thought protecting my reputation mattered more than showing basic humanity. His voice shook. What I didn't realize was that the man I humiliated was my father. Gasps spread across the room. Daniel looked deeply uncomfortable, but Ethan kept going. This man sacrificed everything so I could have a future, and I repaid him by treating him like he was worthless. Claire quietly wiped tears from her eyes. Even some guests looked ashamed now. Ethan turned toward Daniel fully. I can't undo what I did tonight, he said emotionally. But I will spend the rest of my life trying to become someone worthy of being your son again. Daniel looked overwhelmed. Years of pain sat silently between them. Then Marcus Hale slowly stood from his table. Everyone turned toward him. The millionaire walked directly toward Daniel. And to everyone's shock, he held out his hand respectfully. Any man willing to sacrifice everything for his child deserves dignity, Marcus said. Daniel hesitated before shaking his hand. Marcus then turned toward Ethan. You almost lost something far more valuable than business tonight. Ethan nodded quietly. I know. Marcus glanced around the restaurant. And for what it's worth, he smiled faintly. This is the first honest thing I've seen in this industry in years. The tension in the room slowly shifted. Not into pity, into reflection. Ethan pulled out a chair at the center table. For his father. Not the investors. Not the celebrities. His father. Daniel stared at the chair for several seconds before finally sitting down. And Ethan sat beside him. Not across from him. Beside him. Weeks later, Maison Lumière looked different. One side of the restaurant now hosted weekly community dinners for struggling families and homeless guests. The first night, Ethan personally served every plate himself. Some wealthy customers stopped coming. He didn't care. Others respected the change even more. But the biggest difference wasn't the restaurant. It was Ethan. The anger in him had softened. The emptiness had faded. And slowly, painfully, he and Daniel began rebuilding the years they lost. One quiet evening after closing time, father and son sat alone sharing bread and soup in the silent restaurant. No cameras. No rich investors. No performance. Just peace. Daniel reached for the bread basket, and Ethan noticed the scar on his palm again. But this time, he didn't feel shame when he looked at it. He felt love. Because scars weren't signs of weakness. Sometimes they were proof that someone sacrificed everything for the people they cared about. Daniel caught him staring. What? He asked softly. Ethan smiled through emotional eyes. Nothing. He paused. I'm just glad I found you again. Daniel smiled back quietly. And for the first time in 20 years, neither of them felt alone anymore. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and share the story with someone you care about. Sometimes the people we overlook are the ones who loved us the most all along.